There it hangs, suspended in gloom, glowing dimly in darkness. A beacon there to inform us that there is always a way out. But don't go just yet. We have such wonderful things to show you. This is the Exit Light Podcast. Hello there. Welcome to the Exit Light Podcast. I am your storyteller, Eli Beals. It is impossible to say how the first idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. A quote from The Telltale Heart by Edgar Allan Poe. I've struggled to define my particular kind of writing into a relatable word. Horror kind of does it, but I encounter so many people that say they don't like horror, usually scrunching up their face in disgust. I don't understand that reaction, and I don't trust it. Horror is everywhere. It is woven into every story ever written, or at least any story worth experiencing. It is a primeval force that compels our survival instincts or challenges them. For example, I was outside on a rare occasion and observed a squirrel. It was frozen in place amidst a tangle of naked climbing vines along a chain-link fence. It was looking at me, its large black eyes aware and terrified. I noticed that its head was at an angle that allowed it to see behind it as well. And that's when I saw it. A red-tailed hawk, sitting not 20 feet away, also looking in my direction. Had I interrupted this raptor's hunt? Was this squirrel fighting two impulses at once, seeing me as a threat and also its doom, just waiting to descend upon it should it flee? Its tiny heart must have been racing, and I could see it breathing rapidly in fear. I, of course, meant this critter no harm, but it did not know that. I had this distinct impression that the hawk was somehow using me as a means to scare its prey out into the open, so I backed away, so as not to agitate the squirrel further. I felt it had suffered enough, and that the hawk would get a meal today without my help. I'm sure the hawk did not hold a grudge against me. At least, I hope not. This story is about obsession, the kind that motivates one to achieve great things at any cost. The price they unintentionally pay, though, you'll just have to listen to find out. The Terrible Now, written by Eli Beals. Her glassy eyes gaze into the infinitude of space, unblinking in its celestial dome, dead and cold as the light they no longer absorb. I killed her. This was the plan, though, I think to myself. At some point, the plan had changed, giving way to something else, perhaps better. Perhaps my verdict on the world wasn't justified. That maybe there really was happiness in those stars. Love. What a cruel joke. The plan resurfaced when I saw her with him. There, across the street in a cozy little cafe. He touched her hand across the table, gave it a squeeze, and she demurred, only to look up with that smile I knew so well. A smile that makes my ribcage flutter in downy thumps. That smile, I thought, she reserved only for me. I could smell the infidelity through the glass so delicate, prone to shatter, as my heart did in that moment. All my life, I had known the margins, the sidelines, the wings, never shining, skulking like a barnacle. She proved me wrong, though, for a while, anyway, and that brief moment in time is tinted with sunset colors. Despite my plans for her, despite everything I had worked for, I was willing to toss it aside for what I felt for the first time in my 28 years. Love. Elated, elevated to heights of bliss I never thought possible, only to fall from these heavenly clouds that seem so solid. If being in love is the greatest feeling, then its proportional opposite or inverse is equally potent. Crushed. That's the only word I can think for it. Her skin is as pale as marble. Her frozen expression framed by honey waves that splay out across the sacrificial slab. I've removed the restraints, wool padded so as not to leave bruises, no matter how hard she strained against them. She most definitely did. After the drug wore off and her confusion evaporated into panic, pleading with her eyes, beseeching mercy, begging, none was given. And, as the rune-inscribed dagger pierced her cheating heart, she understood. She knew this was my intent all along, the mysterious element that hovered on the fringes of our relationship, brought out in its grand design like a prestige, like a dark punchline. It was finally happening. I would soon receive my desired morsel of divine infusion, my ambrosia. The runes glowed like emerald fire as they did the last time, spreading its eldritch glimmer to rivulets of heart's blood, spreading in vermicular patterns beneath her form. I waited to feel that surge, that wordless song of apotheosis, and I waited and waited. Long after the green effusion flickered and went out, I was alone, abandoned, rejected by consequence and the infinite presence I so diligently appeased, yet still merely mortal. She was reading a book when I saw her through the stacks, absently chewing on a pinky nail as she approached a very good part in the story. I can't recall what it was exactly, only that it bore a modest cover, perhaps one of the classics. My eyes lingered on her posture, relaxed, yet imbued with a ballet dancer's poise, somehow unconscious of her inherent grace. Even the way she turned the pages evoked a sublime elegance. I did not wish to disturb her, merely be in her immediate area, so that when she emerged from whatever world she was immersed in, she would discover me, ready to engage, and I was eager to ask her name, maybe even her phone number. Not willing to break her concentration to commit one of the worst offenses, in my opinion, to ask what she was reading, fearing a reply such as a gentle rebuke or dismissal that would edit me out of her narrative forever. I would deserve no less. I could not focus on the book I had selected at random, perhaps a botany reference guide, or it could have been Vonnegut, my attention wholly consumed by the vision in my periphery. When she at last looked up, I did as well, meeting her eyes with the same approximate expression of one who has reluctantly returned to the mundanity of reality. As if by some miracle, we hit it off with surprising ease. My confidence, spurned by the formulation of the plan, quelled my usual anxious manner, and for the first time in my life I had gotten myself a date. So effortless and natural, thankfully free of my usual awkward self. I was astounded how a simple malicious intent could undermine the terrors of courtship. Was this how the alpha bro does it? I had wondered in disgusted revelation. Was their charm purely sourced from the dowsing rods of their collective manhoods, with only one goal in mind? To plunder and pillage for sport and glory? I think now that my secret was what had attracted her, sensing some greater purpose behind my meek appearance, an energy she resonated with. She would comment about it at times, drawing comparisons between myself and her past engagements with men she referred to as alpha males, which conjured up an image of a chiseled jaw, pastel polo shirt with the collar propped up, and perhaps a totally rad and meaningless tribal tattoo on his shoulder. I didn't mind the comparison, yet what a low standard she held me to. Some people float through life without wonder, happily ignorant of the grandeur and immensity of reality, of its infinite possibility. They stay safe in their traces, merely following those that go before them like pack animals. I was the stray. Perhaps I got distracted by some distant thing that broke me out from the rut, the well-beaten path. I pursued another road, a road few had traveled, leading me to insights and wonders that would consider too fantastic to be true. In my dealings with these forces, I was granted a brief glimpse into such possibilities, and for 9 seconds I was able to fly. Gravity denied its constant influence by the blood of a neighbor's yappy dog. What fantastic imaginings could be realized with something much larger and perhaps sentient? Her expression is placid, bloodless lips slightly parted, as if she was about to say something. Even in this moment of utter disappointment, I resist the urge to kiss them, and my heart lurches heavily in my chest. I ask her in bitter silence, stroking her heart-shaped face, why? I attempt to close that empty stare like they do in the movies, but her eyelids seem cemented in place, and for a moment, deep in those stormy gray eyes, I see a flicker. Perhaps a slight contraction of the pupil to little more than a pinhole, centered in her beautiful iris. Was it recognition, or just a passing delusion, I wonder? I remove the dagger from her chest with some effort, having to leverage myself with a hand on her breastbone. As it comes loose, it catches the web between my thumb and forefinger, slicing it through, effortlessly. I gasp in a sharp breath as blood wells in my closed fist, dripping in bright splotches onto her pale white skin. The cut is not deep, but the pain brings me to the immediate present, to the terrible now. I inspect the runes etched upon the blade, scrutinizing each complex phrase, looking for a break or errant line that could have possibly nullified the incantation. Seeing nothing out of place, I stare hard back down at her in accusation, knowing that whatever had gone wrong had something to do with her. How could she have known, let alone procure some kind of protection or talisman? Her dabblings in the occult extended only as far as astrology, for all I knew. I think back to the look of genuine shock on her face as I smothered her in ether, to her frantic attempts of freedom from her bindings, and finally to the serenity in her features as her heart beat its last. That was it, I think. That moment of her passing through to the unknown. It wasn't fear. It wasn't pain. It was an understanding, a revelation known only to her in those final moments. I turn away from her, unable to forgive her, blaming her for my pain, and yet, what if I had miscalculated? I never even asked her who that man was in the cafe. He could have been her brother or just a close friend. Oh God, what have I done? I stifle a miserable sob of self-pity, inwardly lamenting my loss. Trying to contain this writhing snake of despair slithering in my chest, I let the blade clatter to the slab and walk to a precipice overlooking the dark valley below. The horizon curves to a sliver of dim light, radiating up from the distant city, where my next participant surely is. Next time, I will get it right, I think, and breathe steady. Next time, I won't be distracted with such shallow sentiments such as infatuation or even love. For now, my frustrations vent out into the uncaring night, my cries of rage faintly echoing far below me. I curse the cruelty of the world, its brutal indifference to me, its favor granted to the undeserving. Me. I deserve better. You owe me. I lament to the fathoms above. My fury blows itself out until I am just breathing in hitched fits. Tears begin to trickle down my cheeks. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it? It was supposed to work, I say through gritted teeth. It worked just fine, an amused voice behind me utters. I turn quickly around to come face to face with her. I can only express my surprise at this development by croaking a weak exclamation. I can feel the waves of power rippling off of her as she approaches. This aura is palpable, like a deep bass line from a 20-foot subwoofer that bores into my bones. I take a step back, terror compelling me, not because she's alive, but because of what she's holding. The dagger glows in her hand, casting its inscriptions and blazing emerald figures upon the ground as she advances. Time holds still as I see her intent seething in her deadly calm eyes. I feel the pressure of the sharp point dimpling my flesh before it pierces me, nanometer by nanometer. I try to say that I'm sorry, that I made a mistake, but the words don't flow, as if caught in a slow drain. What comes out is stretched on the beginnings of my sentiment, as if it would take a year to say a single word. What has she done to me? My mind is racing at the speed of sound, but my body has all but frozen entirely. It takes several minutes for my heart to beat, and the air I breathe one molecule at a time burns in my lungs. The blade's hilt thuds into my sternum, and she smiles before wrenching it down. My chest caves open like an overripe cantaloupe, exposing my viscera to the night. Droplets of arterial spray fan out and glow in the emerald blaze emitted by the knife, and just hang there like a Jackson Pollock painting. Her free hand reaches through the scattered droplets, which part like a silk veil in a stiff breeze, landing ungently on my face. The sudden kinetic impact sends me reeling back like a half-dropped accordion, my innards a trail of pulsing gore, arcing away as I fall into the valley. She stands there for what seems like a small eternity. The sun rises and sets, rises and sets again, and I can still see her there, stoic as a mountain. When the lip of the cliff eclipses her satisfied expression, I give in to utter despair. I cannot stop feeling this evisceration. I cannot die. I cannot breathe. And the ground is still so far away.
This occasion, what a glorious day for a funeral. What a glorious, glorious, glorious day for yours, 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 yours.
At least he knows that his spell worked. But was it really necessary? I mean, all he had to do was simply shrug off his self-loathing and insecurities, allow for something good to happen, rather than manufacture a circumstance where choices and free will were not options. I don't know. And personally, I think he got exactly what he deserved. If you enjoy this show, do me a huge favor and tell people about it. Your help getting it out there is of immense value to me and to the show and shows like this. Also, you can reach out to me through my website at exitlightpodcast.com. There you can check out links to my t-shirt designs and other projects. Thanks for listening. Until next time, good night.